Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Paquette, the track announcer at Parx Racing, and you're watching and listening to PAA Game Day.
Please welcome the host of PAA Game Day and a public address announcer for Syracuse University and Colgate University, as well as the New York State Public High School Athletic Association for numerous championships, Tom Winiecki.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of PAA Game Day, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes to meet the voices that you hear all the time, but you rarely get to know. I'm your host, Tom Winiecki, and today's guest is someone whose story is rooted in grit, in love, and an absolutely unshakable passion for horses. She went from being, in her own words, a horse-crazy but horseless preteen to cleaning stalls to eventually something no woman has ever done before, calling the highest level of horse racing in America. She's broken barriers, but if you ask her, she'll tell you she's just as proud, or maybe even more so, of being entrusted with the responsibility of calling horse racing at the very top of its sport. So please welcome Jessica Paquette.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this. And I would just love if you could read that every morning when I'm starting my day. That's a great affirmation to start my day with.
Okay, well, maybe after we record, we could work something out here for you. All righty. So you said that you were a horse-crazy but horseless preteen. Take us back to that young girl. How did you go from that early passion to eventually calling races at Parx Racing?
So everyone knows that horse crazy kid that they went to school with, like the weird horse girl. Everyone knows the one. Well, that was me.
Okay.
And I never really grew out of that phase, but I was obsessed with horses as a kid, and we didn't have much money. So horses were a world away. It is an expensive sport,
Yes.
no matter how you shake it. So these were the early days of the internet. The late 90s, early 2000s, before we thought the internet was scary, when it was okay to talk to strangers on the internet. And there were these old AOL message boards, and myself and a bunch of other nerdy, horse crazy teenagers, we all found horse racing, fell in love, found these message boards, and started debating who our favorite horses were. We had fan clubs. I mean, the kind of stuff that shows I was extremely popular in school. And unbeknownst to us at the time, a woman, Trudy McCaffrey, who owns some very prominent racehorses, she was paying attention to this. And she had this vision that we were the future of horse racing, that the youth was. And I mean, many sports are always trying to get the youth more involved. And she kind of put her money where her mouth was. So she reached out to us and said, "Do you want to come to the Breeders' Cup in 1999? And I said, amazing. So I went to my mom and I said, some stranger on the internet asked if I could go to the Breeders' Cup in Florida. We were in Massachusetts. I said, can I go? And my mom was like, okay.
Oh,
the internet was a different place back then,
I
right?
guess so.
And she also brought our parents with us as
Yeah.
well. But we went to the Breeders' Cup in 1999. It was my first time going to a major horse race. I had gone to Suffolk Downs and Rockingham Park at home, but they were the little guys. So I went to Gulfstream Park for the 1999 Breeders' Cup, and I knew that this was the sport that I wanted to be a part of in some way.
Yes.
I was not a conventionally attractive teenager. I was very nerdy. I looked like Daria from the MTV show. So I wanted to be a journalist. It didn't occur to me to ever be in front of the camera. I just wanted to write about horses, do anything to be involved in racing. So Trudy kind of kept in touch with all of us as we grew up and went to college. And a testament to her vision is that about 70% of the kids that were involved in that program are working in racing today. And I'm still very close friends with a lot of them. It is such a special thing to get to be a part of this sport with the kids that I grew up with when we were all kind of looking out from the outside, wishing we were a part of it. And none of us were born into the sport. And this is sometimes sometimes a very difficult sport to get into if the stork didn't drop you off at the right place. So we all found our way in different capacities. I started at Rockingham Park in New Hampshire, cleaning stalls, just to do something in racing. And from there, I was a mutual teller. That's the person that takes the bets. I did that in college. And then I interned in their publicity office. And from there, I then interned at the Suffolk Downs publicity office, and I never left.
Okay.
Until I had to. Mm-hmm. I became their senior vice president of marketing. That's where I got my first opportunity on air. I called my first race there, but that was just a one-off type of thing.
Yeah.
And Suffolk Downs closed in 2019. So I had to kind of figure out what the rest of my professional life was going to look like.
Okay.
And there were no more horse races in New England. Thoroughbred racing had ended. We were the last man standing.
Mm-hmm.
So when Suffolk Downs closed, I kind of had an existential crisis and figured it out. And I got some wonderful opportunities on air as a broadcaster and a racing analyst, kind of like a sideline reporter.
Yeah.
At Colonial Downs in Virginia and Sam Houston in Texas. And it was Sam Houston where I got kind of a life-changing opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I had been their paddock analyst and handicapper, which was a lot of fun. And then they also raced quarter horses during the summer, and they needed a fill-in for a weekend. So they said, hey, you called that one race at Suffolk Downs back in 2014. I said, yeah, it was like jumping out of a plate. It was the most fun thing I've ever did. But like, I didn't even know what I didn't know when I was calling that first race. And they're like, do you want to come call quarter horses for a weekend? And I said, sure, why not? That'll be fun.
Of course.
Okay. So I went, and it was very hard and very fun. And I had a great time. I thought this was what a cool thing. Mm-hmm. How fun was that? And then the following year, they asked me to do it again. And I said, okay, sure. And by the end of that second weekend, that's where I started to be like, oh, I bet if I really got to practice at this, I could be okay. And it's kind of fun. And I really like to do it in a bigger way. So I kind of put out into the universe that by the time I was 40, I wanted to get a gig calling races. All right. I thought it would be like at a fair circuit or a very small track or filling in for somebody. And as it turned out, it was a little bit bigger than that. And it was before I was 40. So I'd worked at Parx in Philadelphia for their Pennsylvania Derby, kind of as a reporter and handicapper as a guest for the day. And I had such a great time working with their TV crew, and immediately they made me feel like home. So the second time I came for their Pennsylvania Derby in 2022, as I was leaving, their head of broadcasting was like, hey, Jess, you want to try something kind of crazy? And I said, you know what? Why not?
Sure.
Why not me? Was sort of the mentality that I approached it with. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And it was the learning curve was sure pretty steep.
Well, that's all right. Anybody can learn, right?
Well, I think to be a horse racing announcer, you can, but you have to also have the fundamental ability to do it. And I think you either can do it or you can't. It's a skill like anything, and the more you do it, the better you get. But it goes at such a pace that your brain can either go that fast or it can't. Luckily for me, I got scolded for two things in school. One was being obsessed with horses and having no interest other than horses. And the other was for talking too fast.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of middle school kids I had when I was teaching. Yeah.
Sure.
So now you talked about that skill that you kind of have to have and your mind going real fast. Tell us a little more about what that it is that a horse track announcer has to have.
I do think there is kind of a fundamental level of either you can do it or you can't. Doesn't mean you're good at it, but you can either get through a race or you can't. And those first weeks or months or maybe even that first year, it was dicey. I certainly made every public mistake you could possibly think to make, because there's also no way to practice except by actually doing it. It's one thing to call races off of television where you can hit the pause button and the rewind button if you make a mistake, or you know how the race is going to go if you're watching replays. It's an entirely different sensation than turning that microphone on when they're going to the gate for real and knowing that it's your voice going out of there. And I'd watched a million races prior to calling them, but you also watch them differently as the announcer and as a fan or as an analyst in any other way. So it was a learning to watch the race differently. It was learning to be able to articulate what I was seeing into what was coming out of my mouth, because I know what's happening in a race, but there was definitely some lost in translation along the way as I was learning to find the right words and not only stay at the pace of the race, because I do kind of think and talk very fast, but for me, it was also slowing down enough that what was coming out of my mouth was matching what was in my brain.
Okay. Now, earlier you mentioned Trudy McCaffrey, somebody who had some faith in this horseless preteen girl and the group that you were with. And you also told me about somebody, Rich Romano, and how he kind of took a chance on you. Can you talk a little bit about Rich and what he did for you?
So Rich put a lot on the line by hiring me at Parx, because not only was I going to be the first woman to do it on that stage in a full-time capacity, he also was taking a chance on someone who had called pretty much 0 thoroughbred races prior to that point. I had called a handful of quarter horse races. Now, quarter horse races are much shorter and much faster than the thoroughbred race. It's kind of, you're off, they're done, you lose. Whereas a thoroughbred race, you're telling a story. So it was an entirely different kind of skill set to develop. But he took such a chance. And I don't think he or I were prepared for kind of how unpleasant some folks were going to be about that. But he just unwaveringly stood by me through that first year. Sarah Henry, who also works in our TV department, I don't know that I would have made it through the first year without the two of them kind of every day being like, it's all right, we'll keep going. And as I made every mistake very publicly, and Rich just kind of, their support was unwavering. There was never a moment where I felt like I was at risk of blowing this, unless I chose to.
Yeah, well, that's it. It was a big reputation risk for you, but also for Rich at the same time, to put all his chips in the center of the table about you. And even though it had to be nerve-wracking, there had to be something in the back of your mind that said, oh my gosh, this guy really thinks I can do this. Maybe this is something I can really pull off.
I couldn't have done it without the entire TV crew. Mm-hmm. And, when those of us who are public facing and broadcasting, we are only as good as the folks working behind the scenes. Absolutely. And the folks backing us up. And mm-hmm. if I didn't have them every day, and not just Rich and Sarah, but our entire TV crew is such a great, close-knit team that they would be in my ear making me laugh through my IFB on the days where it was going a little sideways. Mm-hmm. And finding ways, because they've all been around a lot longer than I was at Parx, little hints and tips to help me get through it a little bit better. Yeah. You don't realize how important the group behind you is until you really need them.
Right. And for you to know that those people had your back and they were doing what they needed to do to help you be successful at what you're doing, that had to be so reassuring for you to hear.
It was very much so, especially on the days where you feel like you're getting kicked in the teeth, right?
Exactly.
Where nothing's going right. Mm-hmm. When you're not doing that great of a job, and it's just the learning curve. You're kind of just climbing up an endlessly steep hill. And I think the reason that everyone at Parx took a chance on me was because of two things. And it wasn't because I had some prodigious skill as an announcer to start. Yeah. It was because I was good to work with, and my reputation was that I worked really hard. And I think those two things can take you awfully far.
Exactly. And the other people we've interviewed on this podcast, they say the same thing in different ways. They know that this person is somebody I can work with. And it makes it so much easier for you to step into that role because they know that they can work with you. Amazing.
So there's actually a little bit of a further backstory. Is we're all like a patchwork of all of the people we've loved or learned from in our life. And at Suffolk Downs, our head of TV was a gentleman named Don Kress. And I started at Suffolk on air when I was probably 21 and knew nothing about anything. And Donnie was tough on a good day, and there was no mental filter. And I really credit Donnie with a lot of why I am so good to work with, because he set the tone, he set the bar, and I didn't know anything different. And I think about Donnie a lot on the big days where things are kind of crazy and we're all able to stay so quiet, because Donnie was the only one that was allowed to have a tantrum on a big day.
Yes, and somewhere out there, Donnie will hear you at a big race, and just all he'll do is just smile. and know
He
that he's very
was one of my
proud.
greatest supporters when I first started.
Absolutely.
And that's been really nice.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, we're going to step aside for a minute. And when we come back, Jessica alluded to this a few minutes ago, but we'll talk about the negativity that endured against her on social media. Announcing the Game is a free resource to public address announcers that take you through how to take your skills to the next level. A simple click on the sport gives you free access to a video that goes over terminology and rules specific to a lot of sports. So take a look. See if we can help you improve your skills. So we're back with Jessica Paquette. So you alluded to this a little earlier, Jessica. When you arrived at Parx, you walked into a storm of online vitriol that nobody should have to endure, nor could anybody possibly prepare for. What was that like for you?
It was bad. It was not great. I was prepared for it to be kind of tough because Twitter is an unmitigated hellscape on a good day. So, especially when you have the audacity of doing something as a woman that they don't feel like you should be doing, it's kind of, it gets dark on there. And I was not prepared for how relentlessly terrible it was going to be. And, some of them are funny, kind of, but some of them are just vulgar and vicious and with violent undertones. And when you're getting like dozens of messages a day, kind of from very all comers, it does wear on you a little bit. It took me a long time to get to the point where I treated social media like the bottom of the ocean. What's down there is just not my business. Doesn't matter. I don't need to look. But it also is very hard to resist the temptation of like when you're scrolling through your social media and you see your name. That's you kind of want to go, oh, what is that? It's never good. It's never good. One of my favorite emails I got, this one I have printed out. A gentleman emailed saying that I go to the racetrack to get away from the sound of my old lady's voice. I don't want to hear yours.
Oh, what are people made of these days? What do they think they're doing?
I mean, that was one of the at least he didn't call me a name.
Okay, we'll give him that much, but
and at least he didn't imply that I got my job through some salacious means, because that seems to be one of the general trends.
Yeah, well, I guess you can't legislate intelligence sometimes with some
no.
people. No. And when you hear things like that, and you kind of talked about it a bit, that it's hard not to pay attention to it initially, but after a while, is it just something where you just put your head down, move forward, and tell yourself, people like Rich Romano have faith in me. They put me in this position because they know I can do this. And gosh darn it, I'm good enough to do this, and I can do this at a high level. I mean, it was another skill set to learn, right? Along with calling the races, along with memorizing the horses, along with finding a tempo, it was learning to block out the noise, because that's all it was. And at a certain point, it does not serve as constructive criticism. You're not getting better by reading it. It's just making you feel bad about yourself, and that does not help you do the job any better. I read where you said, in relation to this, failure is not an option. And the first thing that came to my mind was, well, you and Mission Control at NASA have a lot in common, and they got a lot of great things done. And it sounds like you're on the same track of doing a lot of great things.
Well, I will never forget that early on, probably my first couple of weeks of doing it, a woman who I admire very much called me and said, if you ruin this, if you don't succeed at this, you will ruin it for everybody, which is, no pressure. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was one of those things that, it came from a good place, but it was not a productive or helpful thing to tell me.
No. All right, Jessica, let's switch gears a little bit to the more happy place back at the track. If you could, take us through a day in the life of Jessica Paquette at Parx Racing, from the moment you walk into the track till the minute that last race finishes. Take us through your day.
So my prep actually starts before I go to the racetrack. We have usually 10 races. So for me to get my brain in the mindset that we are racing today, and this is kind of where your head is, when I blow dry my hair, I know that sounds trite, but I do have to be in hair and makeup to do this job because I am on camera for parts of the day. So this is the practical nature of the job.
Well, at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of men who get their makeup done before they go on camera as well.
I will say none of my announcer peers do their hair or their makeup to go. So that is one other area where I'm in an island. But when I'm getting ready for the day, I will memorize the first field just to kind of put my brain in that mindset. Then I get to the racetrack probably 2 hours before first post, which is usually around 12:05. We have a pre-show, so I'll do a little open, kind of talking about what's happening for the day, a little recap if anything interesting happened the day before, air some features because we also try to film some interesting and educational features for the fans. So that's fun. That starts the day.
Yeah.
And then about 14 minutes before the first race, I go on air and give the analysis of how I think the race is going to go because I also serve as the track handicapper as well. So I will talk about the field and which horses I like from a betting perspective, who I think will win, who I don't like, things like that.
Now, is that all on a closed circuit in the track, or is that over the public address system?
That is throughout the entire. That's everywhere on the racetrack. Yep, that's fully broadcast throughout the racetrack on the throughout the speakers.
Okay.
And it's also kind of aired at whoever is picking up our simulcast feed.
Okay, yeah.
So that's it's aired worldwide. And so 14 minutes race, I go through the field who I like, and then they go onto the track usually 7 or 8 minutes before the race, where I then have to do the post parade, horse's name, the jockey, the number. If it's a stakes race, one of the bigger races, I'll also do the trainer and the owner. But honestly, I really will only do those for stakes races if I have to, because those days get long and I can only talk so much. That's it. So then we go through the post parade. That's when my mic goes off it's usually 4 or 5 minutes until the race. And that's where I kind of go through my exercises of memorizing them myself. What I do a couple of days before the race, once the entries are drawn, I print out the race card and then I color the jockey's silks with colored pencils. I'm very picky about that. Other announcers like markers, some like crayons. I'm a colored pencils gal. So I color their silks. That's what the jockeys wear on the left side of the horse's name for a visual reference during the race. And then once they're going onto the track, if they're wearing brightly colored blinkers or shadow roll or have an obnoxious yellow bridle or anything kind of noteworthy, I will color that as well.
Yeah.
It's so funny because when I was just a racing analyst, I would see like a neon green bridle and think, oh my God, that's the tackiest thing in the world. Now as the announcer, I love them, especially on a day like today where it's dreary and rainy. Bless you and your neon tacky green bridle. So then about 2 minutes post, I give a final warning. Horses are heading to the starting gate, 2 minutes away. They get to the gate, put them in the gate. I kind of go one by one, the horses' names. That's more for me than the public, to be perfectly honest. That's just a last reinforcement of who's who. And now they're all in is my signature thing that I say once they're all in the starting gate, which is a reference to the old announcer at Rockingham Park in Suffolk Downs, was the gentleman, Big Jim Hannon, with this big, massive, booming voice. He was very much a 1950s sort of announcer, but that was his trademark line was, and now they're all in. So I have co-opted that as a little bit of a nod to home.
Oh, good.
So, I never know. Big Jim is no longer with us. I knew Big Jim very well in all my time in New England racing. I cannot figure out if Big Jim would have loved a lady announcer or hated it. I'm not sure. He would have gone very much one of two ways, and I cannot tell you which one it would have been. He was just he was from a different era, but he also, I think, would have gotten a kick out of it. We will never know.
I guess not.
So they, and now they're all in. Then they race. We go through the race. Hopefully nothing wacky happens. Normal race. Everything is done. Then I do the winner's circle. Then I read off the prices of what the horses from a wagering for the wagering public, what they paid. Then I do the conditions of the next race, and then it's 20 minutes until the next one, and I have to do it all over again.
So you have 20 minutes between races to memorize silks and colors and jockeys and all that. That's a quick turnover for you. Times, what'd you say, 10 races on a card?
Yeah, your brain starts to feel like an Etch-a-Sketch by the end of it, because it is just rinse and repeat. And the brain is funny, right? Because you have a pretty good handle on this if you've done it enough times, but then there'll be multiple horses for the same owners in one day, which is fine. That's normal. But sometimes they look awfully similar. And so sometimes there'll be a brown horse in like the Uptown Charlie Brown silks, in one race, and then right after it's the same color horse and the same slopes, and I go, oh God, it's not that one. It's not the one you just called in the first race, and you get a little stuck sometimes.
Yep. Oh, but it sounds like it's exhausting. Like you don't have time to catch your breath between races, and like you say, at the end of the day, you're ready to just melt into your car seat and go home.
I am very tired of my own voice by the end of the day.
Now, for those of us out there that aren't horse racing fans, what exactly is a grade 1 race?
So a grade 1 is the very top level of a race in horse racing. The graded scale are grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and then black type stakes races, which do not have a grade. So Parx is a great racetrack. We have quite a few smaller stakes races throughout the year. We have 5 tomorrow on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. But we have 2 major stakes races. We have 2 grade 1 races. They're each worth $1 million. And they attract some of the best horses in the country. Like the kind of horses that you think of as running in the Kentucky Derby, they're running in our Pennsylvania Derby as well.
Okay. So you are calling the top races in the country. They just happen to be at your track in Philadelphia and not at Churchill Downs or Pimlico or someplace else. But it's still,
they're not quite the Triple Crown races, but they're pretty close.
Yeah. They're right up there at the top is what it sounds like. And going back to your preparation and the time between the race, it was interesting what I read you said at one point. And I love it when you said, do your best with every race because every horse matters to somebody. As PA announcers in any other sport, we know exactly what you're talking about because every name on that roster means something and is special to somebody, and we have to get it right every time, just like you have to get it right every time.
Or we have to at least try to. And there's going to be human error, and you hope that people are gracious if you make a mistake, and you hope you're kind to yourself and learn from it when you make a mistake. But we do have plenty of low-level races as well. Like there was one horse today who had taken 26 times to win his first race, and he finally got it done today, and good for him.
And good for that horse and the jockey. Exactly. All right, folks, we're going to take another quick break, and when we return, Jessica will talk a bit about whether she's a trailblazer or whether she's just a great public address announcer calling the top horse races.
www.publicaddressannouncer.org.
So here we are back with Jessica Paquette. So when you're at the track, Jessica, going through all that preparation and calling those races on every card every time you're there, how much of your identity is that of a trailblazer, and how much of it is simply, I'm a damn good track announcer, trusted to do this job, and I'm capable of doing this at a very high level?
I am very mindful that no one gets where they are by themselves. And I got these opportunities because other women opened doors in other areas of this sport for women in broadcasting or women in management. And I wouldn't have gotten this opportunity had it not been for women like Lynn Sneerson, Kate Bradar, and Charles C. Canty, who came before me as broadcasters. And I take it very seriously that there is a generation of women behind me that are watching how I conduct myself and how I react to the good and the bad, the mistakes, the successes, all of it. And I think representation really matters. And I hope there's a generation behind me that can see themselves in this and come in much more prepared than I was to be a track announcer, because you want to be what you can see. And growing up, I didn't think women could be horse racing announcers. There wasn't one to model myself after. And many of my peers grew up practicing, trying to sound like Tom Durkin or trying to sound like Big Jim Hannon. And when I was first starting, I realized there was no one for me to try to sound like, because it's impossible. I'm not going to sound like Big Jim Hannon in any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Nor should you try to.
Exactly. So I had to find my own voice and my own way of doing it.
The horses are now making their way onto the track for race number 3. There's this race named the OG Handicappers Classic. Post time, 8 minutes away. Number 2, Union Dues, Michael Sanchez. Off and racing. Good start on the outside for field on a roll to the inside. So Olivia's little girl has lost some ground, and our daydreaming is she's Celebrity Quest. She's gotten the cue and she is gaining very big race. Social Storm is game on the lead. Celebrity Quest to the outside, 16th left. Celebrity Quest, Social Storm on the outside. Celebrity Quest, and she delivers. Celebrity Quest over Social Storm. Going to be a photo for 4th and a final time, 118 flat.
So I do hope that that shows to other girls that they can be themselves and that there is someone that looks like them and that is like them, that they can do this.
Well, that's it. In listening to you talk just so far, I'm rest assured that I am positive that there are horseless preteens out there who will eventually be in your position. There's no doubt. No doubt in my mind.
I hope so. The thing is, it's a gift to be the first. I just better not be the last.
No, and rest assured you will not be. All right, let's step away from the track for a minute. You compete in something called hunter jumper events. What are those, and what draws you to that side of the horses?
I just love all things horses, and I compete in kind of show jumping and show hunters, and I jump animals over brightly colored sticks mostly, and pay a lot of money and have a lot of fun doing it. I'm not very good. I'm very much an adult amateur, but I have a wonderful partner. That's the horse in the background. That is Emilio. We've been competing together for a couple of years. He is recovering from an injury right now, so hopefully we are back to it next summer. But I've been very lucky to get to take horses kind of all throughout the East Coast, going to beautiful places and having a lot of fun. I also have a 21-year-old retired racehorse who I took off the racetrack when he was 5. I've had him, for 15, 16 years now. And he was a very, very good show horse for me as well, and has been the partner of my lifetime. He's mostly retired now.
Oh, wow. And you also told me that you run marathons, and you said your goal is to finish the world's Big Six. Now, what is the Big Six, and where are you on that checklist?
Much like how I show horses, I don't do it very well, but I just show up and have a good time. I do run marathons. I've run 6. 5 of them are the world majors. So the world majors consist of Chicago, New York, Boston, Tokyo, Berlin, and London. And I've done all of them except Tokyo. And I'm hoping to get into Tokyo in 2027. I did not get in for 2026. So I need a little bit of luck for 27, but we'll make it happen.
Now, is there a qualifying time for that, or how does that work to get into that race?
Each one is different. Tokyo is usually through a lottery or a or through a charity and a fundraising. I've done charities for quite a few of mine because I am not fast. So I have no problem raising some money. So I think I'll try to get a charity for 2020.
Oh, good. Now, but with all that you do on the track and all the time that entails, how in the world do you find time to train for marathons and travel all over the world to do it?
Well, I do only do 1 or 2 marathons a year, and I have one fellow announcer who is always a gracious fill-in when I need someone to come in and babysit my booth for a few days. But I try not to miss too. I am hard-pressed to miss a day of racing unless I have to.
Okay, all righty. Now, these next set of questions we ask to all of our guests. So we'll start right off here. Of all the races that you called it, all those tracks of you coming up and ending up at Parx, and especially those top-tier races, is there a moment you had behind the mic where you said, "Oh my God, I don't believe we just saw that"? Was there one of those for you?
Oh, there have been. So the thing with horse racing is just when you think you've seen everything, you'll see something you've never seen before.
Okay.
And I've seen some incredible performances, some amazing horses, and then also you see the occasional thing where things go a little sideways. We had a race about a year ago where coming out of the gate, they are supposed to be going left, and a horse decided, I'm going to take a U-turn, and was running towards the other horses. And it was one of those moments where I went, oh boy, in the back of my mind, because separately, it is a fascinating thing that while you're calling races or doing any sort of PA broadcasting, right, you have an entirely separate train of thought kind of in the back of your mind, in addition to what you're thinking and doing. So in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, this doesn't seem great. Someone should say something. And then I was like, oh no, that's me. I have to. That is me. That is you. You are the adult here. And things like that. There's no instruction manual, right? Like no one, there isn't like a rule book that you pull out and go, okay, in this instance, this is what I do.
Yeah.
You're just kind of trying to do your best in those. And no one was hurt. It was fine. Everyone wound up fine.
All right.
So it's the kind of thing that, we all want, everyone walks away from, but you never know what you're going to see. And that's kind of the best part of the job, really.
Okay, yeah.
10 races, who knows?
Well, yeah, you always have to be on your toes, and sometimes that's what's so fun about this job. Yes, exactly. Now, on the flip side of that, a moment that you wish you could take it back. Something comes out of your mouth, and you instantly want it back, and you hope nobody was paying attention. You told me about one of those from a friend of yours from Chicago. Share that story with us.
So this is funny now because it's now almost 3 years past. And it was a big field. Sometimes races kind of fall apart where everything, like some horses are trying to lose, some are trying to win. Everyone's backing up. And there was a horse named Bullet Butch. And it's one of those races that kind of deep stretch. 4 or 5 of them are making moves across the track. And my brain went, it's a late bid from Bullet Butch, but that is not what came out of my mouth. What came out of my mouth was, it's a late bitch from Bullet. And I went, oh no. So then somehow my soul left my body at that point. Yeah. I called the rest of the race. Who knows what I said, but I got through the rest of the race, turned my microphone off and was looking, my booth is on the roof. I was looking out the booth window being like, I wonder if I jump out of here where I'll land. And then I'm like, oh, maybe no one heard that. Maybe, no. I looked at my phone promptly and realized that everybody had heard that. I went, oh, okay, this is not good. Not good. But the first text message I had was from a fellow announcer, Peter Galassi, who is the announcer at Hawthorne Racecourse in Chicago, saying, he's giving me an example of a similar thing that he had done and being like, don't worry, it will blow over. It is okay. Yeah. And it was just such a gracious, kind thing. Not all of my fellow announcers have been really on Team Jess in all of this. Yeah. But there have been a couple that have been just wonderful, and they've been great mentors and friends and have helped with the kind of technical talking shop of this, as well as offering encouragement when I needed it.
Right. Almost like a brotherhood within the business, that you have people that you can bounce things off of, and you trust each other to help each other. With all those people that have mentored you, supported you, guided you, the people that we named here today. Well, here's your chance to pass their gift forward. What bit of advice would you give to a PA announcer, maybe calling their kids' youth league game, or maybe somebody that's out there wants to get into calling horse races, or maybe down a different road in public address? What's one bit of advice you could give them?
Just keep showing up. And it's good to step out of your comfort zone and to make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, but keep showing up. You don't have to be exceptional. The race is really run by the one who sticks it out.
Yeah. Great point. And that can apply to almost anything. Showing up is 90% of the battle. Exactly. Now, with all those races that you've done at all those different levels, and done it at such a high level for so long now, what still excites you about walking through the gate at the track?
Oh, I'm excited by all of it every day, that I get to be a part of horse racing, which I think is the greatest sport in the world. And if I told little 14-year-old me that was on the AOL message boards that I would be doing this, I'd never have believed it. Horses have taken me to a place that is kind of bigger and grander than I ever could have imagined. And it's a joy to get to be the one telling the stories of these horses and people every day. But also as a fan, I get to kind of sit up there and watch horses I like every day. It's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. You're in a place that you love, and you're doing something that you love for the animals that you love. What a better position to be in. All right, folks. So that does it for another episode of PAA Game Day. A huge thank you to our guest today, Jessica Paquette of Parx Racing. Jessica, your story, it's powerful, it's inspiring, and a reminder to all of us that even when the road is made difficult, passion, perseverance, that opens doors that nobody else thought possible. So thank you again, ma'am, for sharing your journey with all of us today. This has been a treat.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. And for all of you watching and listening today, thank you for spending part of your time with us. If you enjoyed this episode, or if not, take a moment and send us a review. We're always looking for that constructive feedback to help us shape our next podcast, when I'll be talking with Jeremiah Paprocki, the public address announcer for the Chicago Cubs. And in the meantime, if you haven't had a chance to already, please check out publicaddressannouncer.org for all of its free resources. All things public address announcing, written by PA announcers for PA announcers. So until then, I'm Tom Winiecki, and I can't wait to hear you on the mic.